Spacebase Startopia is a management simulation game with some RTS elements and is based on a game from back in the early 2000s, some may even say it's a remake, that game being Startopia. It will have you attempting to keep a number of intergalactic guests happy through constructing various buildings and amenities whilst constantly having to kick your janitor robot up the backside for slacking and leaving rubbish all about the floor. Some things never change in these management sims. Is this game more HAL 9000 or a Sinclair ZX81? That was a bloody good computer, by the way. I'm Glen Bolger, thank you to the publishing team for the review code, and now let's find out. So Spacebase Startopia is a management simulation game based on a starbase as the title implies, but it also does include some RTS combat elements. There is a scenario mode to play through that includes 10 missions, as well as a free play mode, and there is also a tutorial for you to try and cut your teeth in. Now I am going to start by talking about the tutorial, as beginning here as I did does actually leave quite a bad first impression, and that is because it's incredibly unintuitive and almost confuses you more than it helps. It somehow manages to tell you lots of information without ever really telling you enough. It does this by telling you what you need to do without ever really explaining how to do it. This inaccessibility definitely hampered my early time with the game and will probably have a similar effect on a few others, but through a combination of trial and error, you do begin to see the fun that's hidden underneath that early layer of frustration. Let's look at the scenario mode then, and this will give you a number of main and bonus objectives to complete, generally around a particular theme, and meeting these objectives will see you clear the level and move on. There are 3 difficulty settings to choose from, and this will alter the efficiency of your staff, for example, the amount of energy produced by machines perhaps, or the general happiness rating of your guests. Your space base is segmented into 3 floors. You have the ground floor, which is the main base of operations and where you will spend your early time with the game. Here you will construct buildings such as factories and recycling centres, which will convert garbage into the aforementioned energy, which is basically your main form of currency. You will also be building medical centres as well as what's known as berths, which effectively deal with the basic needs of your space base for all of your interplanetary guests. The second floor is called the Fun Deck, and this is where you will be building the recreational activity centres such as discos, whereas the top floor is called the Bio Deck. Here you can hire a certain alien race that will harvest resources from the flora, and your fuzzy robots, as they are known, will pick these boxes up and bring them down to the appropriate decks. For example, minerals could be delivered to the factory to allow for more refined resources to be created, or medicine taken to the medical bay. You can build a cargo hold where these boxes will be stored until they are needed. The more resources you have, of course, the more efficiently your space base will run, so having a decent number of staff to harvest and circulate these goods is a good idea. The real-time strategy aspect occurs in terms of unwanted guests that may turn up looking for trouble, and these will need to be dealt with so that peace can be restored. There is a high level of micromanagement involved, and as you start to learn the ropes, which will be slowed down by having to teach yourself a lot of it, but once you do learn these ropes, it becomes very engaging. However, this is where the next issue with the game comes up, and that is just how convoluted and confusing the menus and control scheme can be. Simulation or RTS games generally struggle when being ported across to consoles in terms of the controls, but I must say, having reviewed City Skyline, Rollercoaster Tycoon 3, Tropico 6, 2 Point Hospital, to name just a few on this channel, this probably has the weakest control scheme of all of those titles I've seen on the Switch. Most screens that you will need, such as your construction menu, staffing and research screen, have shortcuts assigned to them that generally revolve around holding either L or R and then pressing one of the face buttons, and this does work okay, but highlighting items in your inventory, which again involves a shoulder button and face button being pressed at the same time, and then a second press of that face button, it all just feels very clunky. I couldn't get it to work some of the time before getting the hang of it through extended play, and just navigating menus is also a chore. It's very difficult to see what you are highlighting or where your cursor actually is. The cursor doesn't appear to take an obvious path across the screen, making it difficult to get to where you want to be, plus there is a delay after pressing a button and an action taking place. It's those small niggly type of complaints, but they are so frequent it will irritate you, mainly down to how easy it would have been for them to correct this. There are other strange choices, such as the maximum speed being normal, meaning that if you have effectively cleared a scenario and just need something to play out, you'll need to sit and wait in real time. Again, why no 2x or 4x speed options? It just doesn't make any sense. Gameplay does have that classic compelling element that makes management sims so addictive, but a high level entry point due to poor tutorials and a few odd design choices do let it down. It scores 14 out of 20. Controls are quite cumbersome in general, but also feel temperamental at times too, and they unfortunately score just 11 out of 20. In terms of the visuals, and starting with the positives, I did like the different rooms of the space base and how each of the 3 floors has a different theme and purpose. There is a fair amount of colour, although perhaps a little too much grey, and the different alien visitors or workers on the space base do add some variety. Unfortunately, the negatives outweigh the positives. I'm going to jump in with a big problem that some people will have with the game, and that is how movement across the playing surface is handled. Moving the left stick to traverse across the surface area of your space station sees the camera hug the curved shape of the ship. It's almost like rolling a marble down the side of a mixing bowl or watching a skateboarder on a half pipe. Whilst the effect in and of itself is quite interesting, and perhaps the original Startopia used a similar style, I don't know, the problem is that if you are susceptible to motion sickness like me, it begins to make you feel incredibly ill. I couldn't play the game for more than half an hour at a time before having to step away from screens completely, not just the game, for a good couple of hours, just to let myself settle down again. To be fair, this is highlighted at the start of the game, there is a warning about it, and there is a mode to turn down motion in the menu, but this refers more to the view from out of the ship's windows and not this floor plan issue that I had. This issue is made even worse by the performance, which stutters at times, and panning the camera left or right can lead to some very rough transitions. Then there are the issues I mentioned with the menus. The choices made in terms of selecting options make it very hard to see what is highlighted, and more than once I almost deleted a file rather than save my progress because I just couldn't tell which button I was currently selecting. Sometimes it's also hard to lay the building blueprints as you cannot zoom out enough to see the whole area, making it all feel like a bit of a guessing game. In handheld mode, whilst the menus are definitely easier to navigate due to the colours being far more distinguishable, the performance is even worse. Even during the tutorials where your space base is minimal at best, the game stutters quite badly. There are just so many small issues and niggles with this game, and they all culminate into something that at best feels like a chore and at worst can genuinely make you feel quite ill. Audio wise, things are kept upbeat and jovial, with the game aiming for a humorous environment. The main pull of the audio though is that of the voice acting, and in particular the ship computer Val. This was a bit of a mixed bag. To be fair, I did like how Val would react to your decisions sometimes, lambasting you for putting something in the wrong place, or commenting specifically on a decision that you have made, but the more generic comments are repeated quite often, and you would hear sometimes the same ones within a few minutes of each other. The humour was a bit hit and miss, but I appreciated the attempt to create a fun world in keeping with the spirit of the original Startopia as far as I've heard. Visuals are okay, but performance is poor, and it will all feel quite nauseating to some. They score 11 out of 20. Audio is one of the stronger aspects of the game, but still doesn't particularly stand out, and it scores 14 out of 20. Spacebase Startopia costs £44.99 and regional equivalents are on your screen now. For this you have the campaign mode, which is 10 missions long, and a sandbox or free play mode, which of course can last for as long as you want it to. I did read that versions of the game on other systems are actually multiplayer affairs, but I cannot see the option on the Switch for this at all. As far as I can see, for whatever reason, this Switch version appears to be single player only, which is quite a disappointment. I've seen the physical version listed on various gaming websites for just under £30, which is a huge reduction on this digital price and highlights a big problem, in my opinion, with some of the prices seen on the eShop. When you take into consideration the technical issues in handheld mode, which would of course been the biggest selling point for this Switch version, then this is grossly overpriced. It is a shame, as the space setting for a management sim is a nice alternative to your parks and hospitals, and there is fun to be had here too, but that eShop version is just too expensive. Seek out the physical version if interested, but value scores 10 out of 20. To conclude, Spacebase Startopia is a fairly decent game, buried underneath a mixture of bizarre design choices, obtuse menus, and poor technical performance. Sometimes a game will review badly because it is bad. I don't necessarily think this is a bad game. I did enjoy some of my time with it, and there is a considerable amount of depth to discover, but it is a flawed experience in quite a few ways, plus that eShop pricing is just incredibly unrealistic. If you grab the physical version or wait for a sale, and you are willing to persevere through a few laborious early hours, then it could well grab you, but otherwise I would have to say just tread carefully before purchasing. Starbase Startopia gets a SwitchUp score of 60%. Thank you everybody for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do remember to leave a like if you did. Let us know what your favourite management sim game on the Switch is. There are a few decent ones on there, to be fair. Stick it all in the comment section below. A quick thank you to our Patreons as always for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.
Commander, a critically ill alien seeking treatment has boarded Startopia.